All right.
These are goofy. You all right, man? We here. We here.
We
Welcome,
here.
y'all. What's happening, Unlimited Mags podcast family? Welcome to episode 3 of the Unlimited Mags podcast. Talking about the time travel culture. That is time traveling in movies and TV shows, what have you, the whole lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a widely used method to progress stories. You know what I mean, right, Scott? Like we've seen it. We've seen whole universes rebooted, comic and movie
Man.
alike, with time
We
travel.
one of the uh universe being rebooted by time travel more than once. Definitely a TV show we got on the list.
Oh, well, go ahead and kick it off, man. We're gonna start with a show. We're gonna talk about a few. For those who are listening on the audio side, hold your thought there, Skiddy. For those listening on the audio side, we're gonna run through a few movies and shows. Example, we're gonna talk about some of the things we liked and the things we didn't like. Some things that could have been done better, right? And
Right,
some
right.
movies that had solid examples of where they took the time traveling concept, or they took a time traveling concept and they nailed it, right? They got it right for the most part. It was solid, or did some things right, or for the most part, because there's no verbatim
Or
written rule with time travel.
or they did it so good that it made you overlook certain plot holes, you know.
Right. You got to give me an example though.
Back to the
Like,
Future.
okay, back
You
to
was
the future.
telling me about it earlier, and then I started thinking, and I was like, well,
Right, right,
yeah, like how wouldn't she know? You know, the father and because they were tight. You know what I
right.
mean? Like,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
the thing is that though, like, can you remember somebody you just met?
I don't know. So that's what I'm saying about with time traveling culture. Like, how does
Right,
that work? Like, is it what was she forgot because to her it's been like 50 years or whatever, right? Something like
right,
that.
right.
It's been a minute, however old she
However
is,
many
she got
minutes,
that
yeah,
money.
yeah.
But like, as he gets older, she should be like, I don't know. You kind of look like somebody, you know what I'm
Or what?
saying, that my
Yeah,
father had.
yeah. Like whatever happened to Calvin Klein? Because remember that was
Right,
a
exactly. Like they never bring up the fact that somebody by the name of Calvin Klein, who grew up to make like in the Back to the Future universe or the Back to the Future timeline. Calvin Klein, that name would have been hard for them to overlook that
right,
because
right.
it's Calvin Klein, and it should
They
have
would have been
triggered
like,
some
that
type.
name sounds familiar. You know what
Right,
I
it should have
mean?
been like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that sounds familiar, Calvin Klein." Hey, remember the kid Calvin Klein who hooked us up and he played that interesting guitar riff at the dance or what
Right,
have you.
right,
He
right.
stopped. He stood up against Biff and all that other stuff. Yeah, he helped me like with my confidence or all that stuff. Like he was in her room. She should have remembered him as he got older. Or I don't know with time travel rules. Maybe she should have had that recollection soon as he went back to his universe. Like as soon as he went back, she should have been like, "Oh yeah, by the way, now she should now have memories she didn't have before. Before Marty had went back. It's actually called Back to the Future, but he goes back in time and then Back to the
Right,
Future.
right, right,
It's
right.
weird, but yeah, he. She should have recognized him though. She should have recognized
Yeah,
him.
that's what I think. But I think I don't know. It's probably like another one of those things where you got to just guess. But that was
Or
something. But again, how they
right.
did the time travel. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
Remember, and
right.
they did it. They did it.
Talk about the time travel.
They did it right though. You got to think about it. Where um when on Back to the Future 2, when old Biff. Now that was, you know what? See, another one.
Right.
Old Biff recognized them.
Did he?
Yes.
He did?
Remember, remember. He said when old Biff, he was like,
Oh, hold
remember
on.
he accidentally saw that flying DeLorean
Right,
at the
right,
end of the
right.
first one, and it
And he
blasted
said
him back in the trash.
he was
And then
like,
that's
seems familiar or
when
something like
they
that.
went to the future, and old Biff was like, you know, he looked at that car, and then that's when he went in there. You know, he grabbed the
Yeah,
almanac.
but wasn't that Back to the Future too, dog?
That was 2.
Uh,
Yeah.
right, yeah. All right. So Back to the
That's what
Future.
I'm saying.
All right. Well, yeah, but
Old Biff recognized the DeLorean from the past when it took off.
right.
How couldn't,
The
Marty's
parents,
mom remember?
nothing else about him. Right.
Yeah.
Like he should have been. He even. I mean, even to the grandparents when Marty got older, in their universe, it kind of already happened, or in their
Right.
time. I guess you can't say universe. In their timeline, it already happened. So
Oh, are you talking about on the second one where
nah, the first one when he went back, like he should have been remembered by their family. You know what I mean?
well
He
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he
Well,
should have. I mean, at least the grandfather he invited him to dinner. I'm just saying. You should have recognized him. He grew up to that same kid who came over. I mean, he looks like your grandson or he looks like your son in the same form.
oh,
It's
you
not
talking
like
about on Back to the Future 2?
no, I'm Back to the Future 1.
Oh, his grand okay,
Yeah,
the
remember in
grandparents
the Back
weren't
to the Future, in Back to the Future 1,
right.
when
He was sitting with his
he was
grandpa
sitting with his grandfather, he was sitting with his uncle, because
because
remember he said something.
he was like, you're gonna be used to these bars to his
Right,
baby
yeah, yeah.
uncle.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, so I mean, all if they can remember all that and they grew up, at least to Lorraine, his mom, it should have
Yeah.
been like heavier in her memory to be like, oh no, I remember like you look like I mean she would have remembered his name. Like they if anything, she would have grew up, they would have named Marty Calvin or something like that. You feel me? I don't know. It's a weird that whole
Mhm.
part kind of got weird anyway, if you think about it. Like you go back in time and like you stay on there, your mama there, that whole the movie got a little weird at that point. I don't know. Back to the Future 2 though, solid sequel. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast we'll have.
Yeah,
Uh, Back to the Future 2 though, a heck of a sequel.
yeah.
I think
Because when old Biff took that almanac and changed the future, and it came
right,
back to the time and
right.
point and changed the timeline completely.
So, and here's the thing: not all time traveling rules are the same for
Mhm.
each like movie, right?
Right.
Because in Avengers Endgame, another time traveling movie here on our list of movies to talk about, in Avengers Endgame, they said that you can't change your future by changing your past.
Right.
But in Back to the Future 2, they were able to do that. Like he was able to prevent his kids from becoming criminals or what have you,
Hmm.
but like by going into the future. So I don't know. It's kind of it's weird. And even in Back to the Future 1, if his parents didn't meet, it would have that means he would have never existed. Kind of
Right.
like I think it's called similar to the grandfather paradox.
If
But
they
like you go
wouldn't have
back in
kissed,
time,
at the dance. Yeah.
right, then he wouldn't existed. So he went back in time, although the it is, I mean, my understanding is that's exactly how the grandfather paradox works. Because if he went back in time and
Hmm.
they didn't kiss, then he never existed, then he
Right.
shouldn't have been able to go back in time in the first. Then he should never exist in like he shouldn't exist in the future. But again, different movies have different time traveling rules. But What's a movie you recommend that had, I mean, solid, did time travel well? Again, Back to the Future. That's a watch we recommend here.
Right.
That
Right.
doesn't
Right.
take away from the fact that it's a good overall movie. Time travel, done a little wonky, but I always have a problem with like time travel is associated with a device. But I mean, device there go becomes temporal,
Mhm.
what have you. I mean, like a DeLorean shouldn't be able to exist in the 50s because none of the parts technically exist, right? So it's like the car becomes temporal. Unlike in, I'm gonna say, you know what? Hold on, hey, y'all go hear it first thing right here on the podcast. If you know me, you know my movie watcher taste.
Right.
If I
Right.
was to say, because this movie I've said it's in my top, and
Hmm.
maybe I don't know if I said it to y'all here on camera, but this movie is in my top, like probably 5 comic book movies.
Hmm.
But to me, it did time travel and it made sense. Which one? What do you think that is?
What? The comic book movie?
Yeah, I'm talking about. What is it?
Did you just say Endgame?
No,
No,
one Endgame. Endgame kind of cheated. It was like time travel,
but it
not,
wasn't. No,
but it
I
wasn't right.
didn't think.
Exactly. Like they time traveled, but I mean, don't get me started on that, but I was talking about Days of Future Past, so you get a fail on that one. Days of Future Past,
X-Men. I
X-Men,
don't you know what's funny? I was thinking about X-Men, but I was thinking about something else that wasn't on our list though. That's
what's
the
that?
crazy thing.
What? Oh, hold on, no,
And you know
share,
what?
share.
I'm surprised that we didn't even like think about this.
What? Share.
J.J. Abrams Star Trek.
The new ones
The first two.
had time.
Remember, the reason why J.J. Abrams universe was created and was, able to work was
Right.
because one of the aliens, the Vulcans that was pissed off,
Right.
the Romulans, Eric Bana, because he was on that movie too. Remember, they had their ship because their whole place was destroyed and nobody could save them, so they went back in time to destroy Vulcan.
So
But Vulcan was destroyed, but it wasn't destroyed like that.
So, all right. So I'm not as familiar with Star Trek.
Okay.
But I did watch the J.J. Abrams remix, like the Star Trek 1 and Into the Darkness. I didn't really mess with the third one too much, but the first two I thought were good, especially because I didn't really watch Star Trek a lot back in the day. I was kind of coming into it fresh, kind of like the same thing with Godzilla. I mean, in episode 2 we talked about reboots.
Right.
I mean, we failed to mention Star Trek, but the quick deviate really fast here. You know what other movie we kind of forgot to talk about? Mortal Kombat.
Well,
which the game. No, the movie, the
movie?
reboot. Man, the Mortal
travel?
Kombat movie that was rebooted. Yeah.
They didn't do
Not with time travel, but just as a reboot. The Mortal Kombat game that was rebooted.
Oh, now
But
the game, that game they
the
did
game has time travel,
Yeah,
right? And it's on our list to talk about. But
yeah,
I'm just
that
saying,
is on our list.
right, in episode 2, we talked about reboots, but we didn't talk about Mortal Kombat or Star Trek. But I didn't watch Star Trek. So you saying Star Trek? I mean, I knew because the OG Spock was in the J.J. Abrams, but he was like, but he was like a doppelganger or something like that.
Well,
He said he got stuck there.
he was from an alternate universe. Remember
Right.
what Nero? I think that's his name, the evil Romulan. When Nero went back and destroyed Vulcan, it changed the timeline. Because remember, on Into the Darkness, that was their introduction to Khan. On the original series, they already knew Khan. But then they came out with that movie, The Wrath of Khan.
Right.
Where I think that's what kind of happened in Into the Darkness. They kind of like changed, I guess when that time shift happened, they changed stuff. Because in the original one, it was Spock who died instead of Kirk, initially dying, because people don't die no more.
Nope. And you know what, man? That's what makes Marvel deaths like hard to take serious, because they could just introduce a variant of that. Like nobody's going to really stay dead. I mean, hey, you got to give credit where credit due. I think DC does a little better when a DC character dies. Like, that's it. You know what I mean? They don't really do the whole variance thing. I mean, they do have multiple tight lines, but you just being a hater. Now, go ahead. What are you what?
I'm playing.
You got your hater hat on. It's invisible, but I know you got your hater hat on.
We'll see. We'll see if the Flash movie time travel is better than the time travel on the Flash show.
Don't even get me started. I mean, I checked out of the time travel. They kept breaking their rules with the time travel on the Flash show. I mean, that show went way long. I mean, from day one, the first time Barry used time travel back in season 1 of the show, and they said that from that very instance, he created a new timeline.
Right.
So nothing else really happened so nothing else that happened thereafter really shouldn't have mattered, because he created this different timeline from the one that we got at the start of the show. But then he kept time traveling, and they kept like breaking their own rules. people from the future come back affecting their past, but then they're just like overlooking paradoxes or plot holes.
Right. Like if you're changing this, why are you still here?
Right. Or
Like
the fact that if you don't adhere to the rules that you're setting in your own time travel story, then you start to get these plot breaking scenarios to where things happen and they don't make sense, and you start digging yourself in a hole you don't really know how to get out of. In my opinion, this Lab's opinion, in my opinion, the Flash TV show relied too heavily on time travel or
yeah.
multiverse. Like it was either somebody from a different universe or a different Earth, and then somebody from the future. Which those two things, I mean, it's all science fiction, but
Right.
those two things are two totally different concepts of like those are two separate concepts of experiencing like a different universe or different Earth and then a different timeline. You can have a different timeline on a different Earth, but
Right.
a separate Earth is a separate Earth. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or like when Barry time travels, does it only like how does the space time continuum work? Is that only affecting Barry in the universe, or is it affecting the other Earths when he time travels and changes on his timeline? So I'm glad, like, I know, I mean, we was talking about this at the beginning of the pot. In Zack Snyder's Justice League, Barry Allen, he uses time travel. Like, that was one of the things that surprised me the most with Zack Snyder's Justice League. I was like, oh, it got real different. Or just some things were different, but the way it ended was totally different from Whedon's version. You see what I'm saying? Barry used time travel to fix because essentially the Justice League lost. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
They lost, and he used time travel to fix it. So arguably, he created a different timeline at that point because in that timeline they were supposed to lose, but he used time travel as like a do-over, as
Right.
like a reset. So I'm like, how's that going to carry over into the Flash movie, man? What do you think? What's your Flash time travel prediction you got for us, Skid?
I mean, with this new Flash movie,
Right. Yep.
again, we already see, two Barrys existing in one time. So, but hopefully, that'll be somebody else. Wink. So,
I
but
mean, right. It could be, but
I'm hoping.
I mean, but from a
But
time travel perspective, though, what do you
but
think
from a
they
time
doing? I
from
mean,
but,
we
but from
can
a time travel perspective, I mean, as far as the Flash movies, he only, again, he only went back in time one time, right? Like that's that of what we know of.
right. I mean, from what we know from in their
Right.
cinematic, we see it only in Zack Snyder's Justice League,
Right.
or okay, maybe twice because he did go back in time to warn Bruce and
Right.
BVS.
Right.
So okay,
Right.
so for what we know,
So
documented, he went back twice.
yeah, so I mean, I guess we don't. For me, and this is for me, we don't
Okay,
have enough, I guess, continuity yet.
right.
You
Yeah, not
know,
much has happened. It's like all these movies, and it still feels like not much has happened. Although
we
it feels like there's a
right.
lot going on in the
Exactly.
movie because like
Exactly.
we see Zod and Feora and them. We got the
Like
world engines back. Y'all know how I feel about those world engines,
now, as far as the Flash time traveling on a TV show, I say like the first few seasons,
man.
they were sticking to their rules. You know what I mean? They kept it a little bit solid. But I think with the continuity that did I said the right word, right?
Yeah, continuity.
Continuity
Yeah,
of what, you know, lore that the Flash has, um like how the Mortal Kombat movie failed.
oh
So
my
many
god.
characters don't know what to do with them. You know
Right.
what I mean? You don't know what to do with them. And like for instance, like what was her name? The his daughter
And what? And
in the TV show.
Barry's daughter?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't remember her name.
yeah, but you remember, right? Like she
Right, when
came
she
back,
showed up, yeah.
right? So my
She was
thing is that her being there, you know what I mean, alone is fucking up the timeline.
right. It should it should jeopardize her existence.
Exactly.
She tried to make it a secret as to who she was, and they just figured it out. But for the most part, no, it jeopardizes her existence. Like absolutely.
Exactly.
Like
Exactly. So it's like that, like after, like I said, and even so, it's just like it was like, I guess they didn't they started running out, then they started going with other speedsters.
Yeah, it
That
got too crowded. I mean, I was I
yeah.
was I was hyped when Wally was introduced. That was dope. And
Oh,
that he was more like New 52 Wally. I don't know
right,
if that's
right,
like I got really into it at that point.
right,
But then
right.
Cisco, got his character, and then like Caitlyn, and it just got too crowded. And then here they came with half 1 foot in, 1 foot out, wanting to give us a Batman. So I don't even get
Don't
me
get
started.
me, well, that's another podcast.
It is.
DC stuff that don't give
Why
us,
we, why
or
we
you
gotta
know
go?
what? No,
Why
hero
we gotta
hero
go?
movies that don't give us,
What we
full like
want?
what they saying. Because I'm telling you, man, I was disappointed. Like I still watch Titans, the show, which it's all right. I'm not going to
Sorry.
front. They have elevated. The story has gotten better. But
Okay.
man, when we got Bruce Wayne, but we didn't get
Batman.
Batman, or we got Batman, and it was like a guy in a suit, just a couple of seconds,
Right.
or a
So
CG jumping out the window.
So speaking of Batman, do you think the Flash movie is going to like reset? They're going to use time travel to reset everything? Because I was getting at with Days of Future Past to kind of go back to that.
Right.
Is that
Yeah,
Days of Future Past, they reset the whole
they reset the whole
cinematic
universe.
universe. I think it was a
Right.
genius move because X-Men 3 was poorly received, right?
Yes.
Like let's keep it a buck. It just was.
Yes.
It was not great.
Yeah.
X-Men 3 was poorly received. Could have been better. I mean,
Mhm.
X2, another sequel that even in our conversation we had the other day, when we were talking about sequels, we ain't mentioned X2. We was going
Yeah, we didn't mention that too.
another sequel here we're going to talk about here. Probably one of the best science fiction time traveling stories ever done. But
Oh, that's
come on now, spoiler Skiddy.
right there,
His
baby.
spoilers be spoilers.
Hold on,
You
hold
just
on,
can't
hold on.
look.
So,
You talking about Running Man with
no, I ain't talking about Running Man. I
who
said
was
T2.
oh okay. You wasn't supposed to say it right now, but T2. Terminator 2.
Terminator 2, dog. Which
Terminator
they
2
should have just stopped.
at T2.
That should have been it.
You jumped the gun, man. We were talking about how
I'm
Days of
sorry.
Future Past.
I'm sorry. Well, all right, let's go back to Days of Future
You
Past.
spoiled. You just can't help it.
I
Like you
know. I
spoiled the podcast.
know.
I don't understand.
No,
How do
man.
you
Because as soon as you said the greatest, it was
nah,
like,
but I said the greatest, and I said we're gonna save that one for later, and you just started Terminator walking, just like
the
just
T1000 run.
like dang. You a spoiler, man. Oh
But
my god. Days of
But
Future
Days of Future
Past.
Past, though,
We set the
I did.
whole X-Men universe.
Yeah, yeah.
The X-Men
And
only universe now. It's unfortunate that Days of Future Past couldn't have been done at a time when the whole Fox deal was going down,
right.
and the merge was coming, because they could have fully incorporated. That would have been the right time. But what it did, for those who haven't seen, for our younger audience, right? For those of you, or even our older ones who ain't seen Days of Future Past, like if you need a good X-Men movie, it's one of the better X-Men movies all together, right? Like there's like, what is it, like 6 of them? 6 X-Men movies? Yeah, there's 6 X-Men movies. You got X-Men 1, X-Men 2, X-Men 3, First Class, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse. Oh, and Dark Fate. I'm not Dark Fate, the Phoenix Drawn. So there's 7. Tell me I'm wrong. You
You're
thinking
right.
about it.
But that's
Yeah,
the one that
7.
we don't like to mention.
What, the Dark Phoenix one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that John was suspect. But still, they got 4 movies out of their second go of X-Men movies.
Yeah,
So
that is
Days of
true.
Future Past, though, for those who don't know, Days of Future Past, they use time travel to reboot or reset the Fox cinematic, X-verse, or the X-Men universe movies, especially
It
to
was
kind of
also
to get rid of that bad taste that they left everybody with
on
X3.
X3.
Because
It
I
also
mean,
was an interesting take on how they initiated time travel. It
right?
was
So
through the
right,
mind,
right,
which
exactly.
was interesting.
I really like that they used the ex-girl, Kitty Pryde, and her ability to send the conscience back in time. So what Skiddy's referring to that I really, really rock with it. I thought it was like, I'm like, finally, a time traveling scenario where there's no MacGuffin. There's no, hey, spoiler alert, there's no doohickey. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm gonna take one. I'm gonna take a page out of your book. That's a future podcast title, the doohickey. But there's no doohickey. There's no DeLorean. There's no watch.
Right.
There's no bracelet. There's no landing pad. And the idea is that he's still vulnerable. See, Marty McFly didn't have this problem.
Right.
Wolverine, Logan was still vulnerable in the future.
Mm-hmm.
They had to keep him alive, even still in the future. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
While she sent his conscience back in time. And I like the idea when he's like slipping between because she's, the connection is breaking and he starts to untether. But yeah, he was vulnerable.
Right.
In the future.
Right.
They had to keep him alive. And I like the concept that, sending him back in time, he still was vulnerable in both worlds. I mean, yeah, Wolverine
still had his bone claws.
Right. And only had his bone claws. So when I first saw that, I thought that was interesting. I was like, all right, so cool. He, he didn't realize going back in time, like he didn't have the, going back that far. Maybe he forgot. He should have known that going in that time, he hadn't yet had his adamantium claws. So I don't know if he just forgot, and with the whole shock of, whoa, I'm like back in, I've traveled back in time.
I think it's also like the disorientation that he was going through. And he knew he was on a tight schedule, so I think that's probably wasn't on his forefront. Because remember, he was surviving with the bone claws for so many years throughout many wars.
Right, like he did all right with it. I mean, it's kind of weird you think about because his bone. I mean, he's helpless against metal, as we saw when he was trying to fight the Sentinels,
right.
Of the early version of the Sentinels. He couldn't really do much against them. You know what I mean? But that whole scene was dope, and again, such an underrated movie, but I think they did time travel really well. Like if I travel back in time, I would definitely want my conscience. I would want my conscience to go back. What did you like about the time traveling
in Days of Future Past? Like I said, how they did it through consciousness. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that was a very interesting take on how to try and travel in itself. Like we can exist outside of our present bodies. You know what I mean? Like that was definitely deep.
Right. Would you be mad if your future self took over your present day conscience? It was like just hijacked your body.
I mean, if my future self took over my body, it would be for a reason.
Right. So you're gonna trust it.
Huh?
I said, so you'll trust it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. My future self.
You come back jacked all the time up. Gonna come back. We go in the future. Tony Stark played by Cuba Gooding Jr.
Boy, what man?
Hawkeye played by Samuel Jackson.
I don't care. A lot of things wouldn't have happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude.
DC would have been on top because you would have wrecked the whole Marvel lineup going back in time. Marvel, DC be on top.
There you go. You said it right. Marvel, then DC. There you go.
So to compare the first two, Days of Future Past and Back to the Future, to break down which one did time travel better? Like which one?
Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past, right? Like stuck to the overall theme of if this
but
is.
But you know what? Here's the thing, and I'm sorry to cut you. I'm so sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead, go ahead. What you got?
Back to the Future, even though it dealt with time travel, was more comedic type of situation, a family home movie.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? Now, even though X-Men is, family, it still was along the lines of comic book action. You know what I mean? A different feel, different genre.
Right.
So, I mean, even though most comedic movies have plot holes in them, you know what I mean? Like, they still did time travel a bit good, especially when Doc Brown was explaining how it was a paradox that changed when old Biff, took the almanac and shit and gave it to his younger self. So that was, I can honestly say they did a good job. But if I have to compare the two, Days of Future Past's outtake on consciousness, traveling through consciousness,
and just in how time travel as a
hmm
culture, like
right?
the means to an end of time travel, it typically means you're trying to go, even in 12 Monkeys, right?
Oh,
Like even in 12 Monkeys, like with time, you're trying to change something that happened in the past,
right.
or you're trying to change something that happened in the future. Both cases in Back to the Future 1 and Back to the Future 2. Days of Future Past, same thing. They tried to, so in that timeline, I guess in the X-Men 3 timeline,
hmm
Mystique goes off and the Sentinels are created and they ravage Earth or what have you.
Yeah,
But then they try to go back in time to prevent the Sentinel program from ever being created, so that they don't create that dark and bleak, future that we saw
right.
that was possible. Which I thought the scenes switching back and forth were pretty interesting, to be honest. I mean, at first it was kind of like a shock to see all the X folk die, but no understanding what the stakes were, we knew that it wasn't going to be anything, withstanding or permanent. They were
hmm
all coming back. It was just it was their
right.
way of explaining why, hey, everybody's about to look different. This is something I said in my Secret Invasion video, and I also believe in episode 1 of the podcast.
hmm
Marvel needs a Nexus level event. They need a reason to explain why cats are about to start looking real different. And I
Right.
still think it could come in Secret Wars, because
That's
it has the potential for them to say, oh, we have these these ultimate universe characters, which I really think in Marvel 5 and 6, instead of going like in phases 5 and 6, instead of going full into the multiverse like they really should have started like going into explaining like the ultimate base variants of characters like Tony's, like Iron Man or like Captain America, giving us the
right.
ultimate versions of those characters, so
Right.
they can merge the Ultimate Universe with the MC Universe, like at the end of Secret Wars, and that could bring us back those characters like Chris Evans, solid as Captain America, great casting choice. Same thing with RDJ as Iron Man, great casting choice. But we need these people to come back. We need Iron Man to come back. We need Captain America. Like we need these central characters. We need these central characters in the movies going forward, especially with the MCU kind of
But
like.
that would be good with the time, like if they did like a good time shift. So
Like, what do you
like
mean?
bring it
Like,
back,
if,
like how like basically what Loki's doing, how they have access through all time.
mm-hmm.
That's probably what they're gonna have to do.
I want to see,
So
but suffice it to say, we want Iron Man. We want to see more Iron Man. We want to see more Captain America.
I
I
mean,
think.
I want to see other characters.
I mean, sure. I mean, yeah. But
That's
guess what? You
yeah,
about to tell me a bunch of X-Men or a bunch of characters Marvel just got the rights to.
bro.
Or, I mean, because so do I. And a lot of people are. I know Deadpool 3 started filming. You know how I feel about Deadpool. I mean, I'm not. He's all right.
I
But
mean,
Deadpool 3, I'm
again,
actually interested to see how I'm interested to see Marvel's version of Deadpool. I'm interested to see how they do it.
I
And
mean,
how will he play into the whole time travel multi-universe? Because how are they going to explain or define Logan's Wolverine with Deadpool's universe? I mean, they gotta make it make sense,
well,
especially given where we left Wolverine at the end of Logan in the future,
right.
like dead. So where's this going to take? Like, this is interesting, man. It's interesting times, and I think Deadpool 3 is a movie that a lot of people have been saying is going to save the MCU. They thought that was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, your favorite 2023 movie this far, but no. Some might think it's Deadpool 3 that's going to save the MCU, not Guardians 3. What do you what do you think? I know you still Jones on the fact that, I mean, I know it's your Jones. You said it. You gave it a 10
I
out of
said it
10.
was my job, but I ain't say it was
You
my
said it's a
favorite
10 out
movie
of
of
10.
2023.
You
You
ain't
can
seen
see
nothing else worth a
you
10 out of 10.
talk
So
about me like over like I'm like, bro, like did I say that was my favorite? It's okay. I forget that. I
rating it a
forget
10
that.
out of 10. Rating it a 10 out of 10 don't make it your favorite movie.
I said 9.
No,
No, I
no.
said 8.5. 8.5, 9.
8.5. That score keep going down.
I said
8.5.
8.5, 9. That's what I
9.
round them two.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
You're right.
That's Skiddy's movie, man. It's all good. I ain't even gonna.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. It's okay. We know how much you love BBS. So
y'all know I low key rocks with BBS.
yeah,
That's a solid 9 out
ain't
of
no
10
low
for me.
key. It's high key.
That's a solid 9 out of 10 for me. That's a solid. My man said, "Stand down. If I wanted it, you'll be dead already." Oh man,
Ooh,
the Kryptonian,
Martha,
the
how do you
Kryptonian,
know Martha?
the Kryptonian and me
How do you
got the
know
pulsating.
that? Okay, we're
See,
going off.
that's,
We're going out of time. So,
yeah. I see what you did there. Time travel culture. Ooh. You're running out of time. Go back in time and change things. Go back in time and change things. But to suffice to say, if we were given it a hierarchy, Days of Future Past, sticking to time traveling culture, which is going to be different. We'll admit it's different. It's not going to be the same for all things.
right,
But for the most part, they stuck to, they didn't deviate for the most part. They kind of struck, they left in that you can affect and change your past or affect your future. You know what I mean?
right.
These things you can do. And that's what they did in Days of Future Past. Went back in time to change the future. Although, I mean, it's kind of like, you're wiping yourself out at that point. I mean, they knew the writing was on the wall for them. They were being hunted down by the Sentinels, the Super Sentinels,
Right.
because those things were not like the ones we got growing up with. You know what I'm saying? But they were being hunted down, the Super Sentinels, and so they knew their time was running out anyway. It's like a last-ditch effort. We got to go back in time and prevent the Sentinel program from ever happening. And then that just created a whole new universe and timeline. I also think it was really neat and cool that they still was able to explain that why Wolverine existed in that universe from that point. They're going forward, and then he also made that cameo. And what was it? It was the third. It wasn't Apocalypse. It was in the Phoenix John when Wolverine made he made his cameo in his old classic style with the drawing on his head, and he had the things on his side because they was like, "What's inside of there?" And she was like, "It's an animal," and it was Wolverine. And they freed him, and he
Oh
broke out.
yeah, he made a what was it? It was on First Class. Yeah, First Class, and on that.
Yeah.
Because First Class, they went up to him on the bar, and he's like, "Go fuck yourself."
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was in First Class. He made a cameo, but he also made another one when they was escaping from when they ran into Stryker when Stryker kidnapped them all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I mean that was dope. I like how they did that. I mean, I think Days of Future Past, time travel, they stuck to their guns. Good time travel culture,
Right.
But Terminator 2, man. T2. Go ahead, do your T1000 run again. Go ahead, you little triathlete. Yep. There you go.
Yo,
get that medal.
but when he was hawking that dirt bike down, that was crazy. Yo, he just
the whole movie. The whole movie is crazy. The whole movie is crazy.
Yeah.
But before we get into that take, y'all, we have to say we both agree here. Maybe y'all feel a little different, but we both agree here that the Terminators movie should A, stop at Terminator 2, B, definitely stop at Terminator 3. And then after Terminator 3, they should have just left them in this, they should have stuck to the Salvation universe. Pretty much Judgment Day is inevitable. Cool. What leads us to the point to where he sends the Terminator back in time? And then they could have ended the trilogy there because think about it. That is the start. That's Terminator's next point.
The start.
But John Connor sends Reese back in time. So they could have, you know what I mean?
That was the final mission. That was known as the final mission. And in that lore, in that universe, that was the one. That was the one where they found out about the time machine, being in Skynet, and about how Skynet was sending Terminators to destroy his mom. But he already knew this stuff was coming.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the whole thing. Like that was the final mission. That's the story. I'm gonna be honest with you. We got that story on a game. You know what I mean? We got that story on comic books, but we never got that story in like a cinematic feature. I would even take that story in an animation. You know what I mean? But yeah, I would definitely want that story. But back to the time travel culture of Terminator 2. They kept it solid. They kept it solid. When it wasn't. Go ahead.
My bad. No, go ahead.
When the T, what is it? T800.
Yeah, he was the 800 series. I believe that.
T800. When the T800 failed, they sent the T1000.
Right.
I mean, but in the story, they sent more than just one T800.
Right.
So, but yeah, they sent the T1000. And that's another thing too. And I'm sorry, because now I'm starting to go all in now.
Go
Whole,
ahead.
like, the Terminator universe, because on the Terminator universe, they never explain how they got a Terminator, reprogrammed them to fight for humans. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Okay, you got a point there. That should have been. That's something that could have been explored, and that's go ahead.
Hold on.
Right.
The game that a game that should have been beautiful.
Resistance. He's talking about Resistance for those.
Yes, Terminator Resistance, y'all. I the game was all right.
Right.
I paid $40 for it. I shouldn't have done that shit. Just letting y'all know.
Right.
But the story,
tell your stuff, man. Tell yourself.
The story that it was telling the story. There's a mission on there where you got to grab certain parts so they can build and reprogram the Terminator to send back in time. You did missions, for them to do what they needed to do in the movies, which was crazy.
Which is dope. I mean, if you look at Resistance, I mean, they kind of have like a look and vibe that would have suited, that universe or that timeline. If they would have ended with Terminator 3, which you both agree, they should have ended with Terminator 3, right? Then they could have took it by saying, you know what, Judgment Day is inevitable. There's no getting around it. It's going to happen.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? We got to deal with it, right? We have to deal with it. At least you can't change. You can't stop Judgment Day.
Right.
Arnie said it. I believe in all of them, and he was like, "Judgment Day is inevitable. Right? Like Judgment Day is inevitable. There's no getting around it. It's going to happen. Even in Dark Fate, they said the same thing. It was like Judgment Day is inevitable. So it's going to happen. So how do they deal with it? How do the humans? I guess in my opinion, it's more so Terminator is more so about how do the humans win in the future.
Right. That's what we need to know.
How do they win in the future? And that's what we need to know.
That's what we need to know.
I know as much you champion what is that? You champion what's the name of the movie? The movie you champion. One of the bad movies you like champion.
Nope. I'm not even gonna remind you.
What's that bad movie you like? What's that bad movie you like, champion?
I'm gonna say it's a movie that I like, and I'm gonna look at you all crazy all over again.
Because it is a movie you rock with. It's said all over again.
What movie?
It's Terminator Salvation.
Oh, I do fuck with Terminator Salvation.
Yeah, but I don't like how they introduced this Terminator who didn't know he was a robot. I'm not buying that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not buying that.
That's if you're not familiar with like the Terminator universe. They were making that that was that. See, and okay, now, but we talked about this. They should have explained that like in a movie or something like that. I do.
Right.
They should have done that. But like, if you're familiar with like the Terminator lore in Dawn of Fate, the game, you know what I'm saying, and in comic books also too, Skynet. That was one thing Skynet was trying to do. They were trying to make a lifelike Terminator that was easy to program. But the whole thing is that they kept on failing, malfunctioning because of, the whole unknown about the consciousness thing. Oh yeah, we're looking at Terminator Resistance right here. Like I said, like when you look at it, you're like, oh my goodness, are you serious? You know what I mean? Like
it looks good.
And that's the trailer.
On the video portion, which you should be. I mean, whatever you listen to the podcast, make sure you rate it. But for those of you, if you want the video experience, so search us up on YouTube so you can see the video portion here. What we're looking at, but we're looking at the Resistance
and
trailer.
It's like they're not this trailer, and this trailer is what got me.
Right.
This trailer is definitely what got me because the gameplay is definitely not smooth. It's not smooth.
I gotta check it out. I mean, I thought it looked good.
Again, if you want to complete, here's what I'm gonna say. If you want to play the game to do the stories, to do the missions, do it. What I feel as though they should have done, they should have taken a page from Homefront.
Homefront.
They should have taken a page from Homefront, the second one, the second Homefront game.
Okay.
And I think it would have been. I think they should have took that gameplay and put it and put it on here. Put it on Resistance.
I think Terminator Salvation. I think the next Terminator movie should have been one that's very similar to what we got in this game. One that takes place in the future. Like, we're done with sending a Terminator back in time. We know what the outcome is going to be. John Connor is not going to die. Another movie you champion in the franchise, which again we started this off by kind of talking about.
No, because there's only hold on. There's only 3 movies in the franchise. No, let's get this clear, because he's trolling the shit out of me right now. So there's only 3 movies that I like, that I loved in the Terminator franchise. And that's 1, 2, and definitely Salvation. Reason being is because I said because. Because of how they explain, John Connor's, aka Strongheart, which has been mentioned in the lore throughout, Terminator universe. So, and also they explain how he got the scar in his eye, which was also cool too. But I digress. I did not fuck with 3. I did not fuck with. Well, hold on.
See, he's about telling himself.
Just like you said, hold on. Just like you said about dumb action driving movies.
Okay.
We cannot now. Let's both agree that the Terminator, regardless of how crappy the third one was, regardless of how crappy Dark Fate and this recent Genesis crap.
No, the other way around. Genesis was the one with your boy, and Dark Fate was the one that just came out.
Either one. They was both crap.
Well, I was gonna say Dark Fate was better than Genesis, but go ahead.
But it's what I will say is that they had good action.
Oh yeah.
They had good action. Especially that was Dark Fate, right?
Dark Fate is the most recent one. The one they brought.
That's the one where they changed, where it's a new AI.
Right, yes, Legion.
Yeah. That one, that the new Terminator, that could split himself apart.
Yeah, but him doing that though kind of ain't make sense at points, because he could have long ended everything. They didn't explain like him splitting himself up. Does he lose? Like, does it make him a little less weaker?
I think it makes him a little less something. Because think about it, like
a little less smarter or something, because he wasn't even all that like. I don't know.
Well, I mean, remember, like the Terminator, the Terminator the Terminator was never, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, it just did shit how it's supposed to do shit. That was the whole, the whole point. Think about it. First Terminator, Arnold was like, I need to speak to Sarah Connor, at the police station. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah,
and they're telling him he need a pass, and he's like.
So the Rev 9 Terminator that was sent back in Dark Fate, he wasn't that smart, dog. Like, he could have killed her, the girl. I forgot her name, the new leader of the Resistance. He could have killed her in that factory without pulling the gun up and revealing himself he's about to shoot her. Like, he was able to make like daggers and swords and other kind of sharp, metal spikes protrude from his body. He could have just walked up and like hugged her, or just like put his hand on her head and like shot it across and just walked away on some old Assassin's Creed type time.
Yeah, could have, should have, would have. But I mean, for the most part,
he didn't just do smart things. At least the T-1000. The T-1000 was just like smart, although he was OP. My problem with the T-1000 is like he has no visible parts. At like no visible components. He's just liquid metal. But okay, so where's his power supply? Right, but even if it's nanotechnology,
too. Yeah.
Well, it was more so prominent on Geonosis because he's liquid metal. That's not nanotechnology. But on Geonosis,
liquid metal.
He was those were nano machines. You know what I mean?
What about 3? Wasn't that nano machines too?
No, she was liquid metal too.
I thought it was nano.
No, she was just liquid metal. So when they shot him, she split, but then it was more like water, to where nano machines or nanobites. They're like, it's more like how what like Tony Stark's armor. When it goes away, it has to like come back. It doesn't form like liquid. You know what I mean? Because how would they send it back in time? First of all, it was like
So
it had to
that
be
would be more
metal
like the
over.
Rev 9 then.
Well, even the Rev 9, I guess would be
That would
more
be
so
more
because
nano.
he was black. I mean, his liquid was black though, so maybe
But it
not.
wasn't
I
like
don't know.
liquid though.
It
You know
was
what I'm saying?
liquid because when Linda Hamilton blew him up, he like was a pool and she walked away because she thought I don't know why she thought she killed
We
him.
got pulled that one up.
He looked like he looked like liquid.
I could have sworn it was like a metallic type.
Because when they send Terminators back in time, they say it has to be like flesh over metal. You know what I'm
They
saying?
could have fixed that problem.
Oh, you see that? Reach. Go ahead. Yeah, that's a reach. Yeah. He is in the Walmart trying to get the last pack of oodles and noodles reaching on the shelf. That's a reach.
I forgive you.
But that's one rule in time travel culture that I think I like, that the Terminator verse, the lore they explained, they made sure that they didn't yada yada over it. That
Right.
The reason why they look like humans is because they can't send metal, they can't send, it has to be organic flesh that they
Right.
send back in time. So you can't go back with weapons or anything like that. You know what I mean? Although a Terminator is essentially a weapon without a weapon. You know what I'm saying? It's essentially a weapon. But Terminator just got time. I mean, Terminator got time travel right and wrong in a way, because if you think of the time loop that happens where, okay, we want to go back in time to stop the apocalypse from happening.
Right.
Right. So John Connor in the future is going to send his daddy back in the past, who's going to hook up with the mama and conceive him.
Right.
So if John Connor doesn't send Reese back, does he not exist?
Yeah.
At some point, it's a paradox.
But I think it would create a paradox, though.
It already did, because John Connor sent his father back from the future.
Right.
So it's kind of like there's two versions of John Connor that exist. The one in the future that exists, who's there with his daddy, who look like they're about the same age. If you even look at
well, no,
Salvation.
Salvation. Remember, he was a kid.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to go by the Salvation version, he's a kid, which
and
still
then,
doesn't make any sense, though.
And then on Genesis,
he was about the same age.
He was younger. He was younger.
They look like they about the who was like they. I mean, they could have been about the same. Well, it don't make sense that his daddy is young then, because how can John Connor exist if his daddy hadn't even existed in the future yet? Or even in Salvation, he's like mad young. So it's like, what is he going to?
Well, remember, Salvation was when they first met. You know what I'm saying? So it was years. Like Kyle Reese grew up because he was a teenager when they met.
Right. I remember he was a young boy with the girl who couldn't hear.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, how could John Connor exist? At least that future John Connor, if his daddy's a youngin'. So John Connor, there's either two versions of John Connor that exist, or the warlike minded John Connor came about by sending Kyle Reese back in time. Because in OG Terminator, he says like, "Yo, I knew John. Me and John were like real tight." I'm like, "You tight? You hang? You cool with your future son? Think about it." So like, if Nala, if one of our kids, if Nala grew up and you're like, "Oh, in the future y'all busting up, destroying AI or whatever," and you come to find out, you got to send yourself back in time. Like, I don't know. It just gets, that part is the one part where I kind of look at Terminator with the real side eye. Right. Because it just doesn't, that part of the story just doesn't make sense to me. Plot I know all our what'd you say?
I said plot hole.
Plot hole. This dude, now he right though. Big plot. I mean, it creates like this, it creates a big plot hole. It creates a big plot hole. Because either Sarah Connor would have You know, like if Kyle Reese never came back in time, she never has John Connor. So what?
Now, will that still shift if she never has John Connor? Well, here's the thing though. Would that death of Sarah Connor alter Skynet?
I mean, see, that's what I'm saying. And
Yeah,
Dark
see, now we about to be on a whole nother.
and Dark Fate, but that's what I'm saying. That's the culture of time travel.
Yeah,
If it's not poorly implemented, then they start running into too many plot holes. So Days of
right,
Future Past, the other one we use an example, didn't really have that problem. They kind of sent them back in time. They achieved their goal. There was no, oh, we went back in time. Oh, but Judgment Day is going to happen anyway.
right,
Or the future still exists where the Sentinels took over alongside the past that they're trying to change.
right.
So in Terminator, especially Terminator 2, when she thought like, oh, we stopped Judgment Day.
Mm-hmm.
But they just kind of postponed it. That's
Right,
the whole concept. Even in Terminator 3, that's why I like Terminator 3, but I didn't like Terminator 3. Terminator 3 highlighted that this was bound to happen, it's going to happen regardless.
right,
Judgment Day is an inevitable. See, this is how humanity will restart. This is one of our extinction level events that humanity has to restart from and rebuild as a civilization. It's going to happen. You know, that's what the Terminator in that movie was trying to point to John, that he wasn't trying to like help him stop it. He was trying to help him keep him safe through it,
yeah.
to
On
keep him
3,
alive. It
yeah,
makes so much more sense to send the machine back in time if John Connor died if John Connor died, like instead of dying in Terminator 2 and the future is still wonky,
mm-hmm.
then in Terminator 3, like he thought, he thinks, oh no, we stopped it, or nothing happened. And they're like, psych, you're right, it's still going on or whatever. Because what it boiled down to, it wasn't about stopping it, it's about keeping you alive so that you can lead the resistance, not
Right.
kill Sarah Connor before she had a boy. That was in Terminator 1. Terminator 2 is all right, we'll kill the boy before he can grow up to become, this resistance in the future who's gonna
Right.
his leader
And
who's
then
gonna
that's
call.
when 3 was still kill the boy and kill all the people that he's with. That's
Right,
with him in the
exactly.
future.
It's like kill him and kill the girl too, Sarah Brewster, right?
Well,
It
his
wasn't
generals, his base, the resistance,
right,
the heads of the resistance. That's who they
right,
were assassinating. Well, that's who they were killing off on 3. Remember, they were
right.
offing kids.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
They
yeah.
were
Three.
offing kids.
That's I'm like three has some good action in it though. Like three has some decent action in it. Three wasn't great, but it wasn't all that bad either. It's
Yeah,
that
yeah.
trilogy fever that movies suffer from, and they try to enter into
You know,
that third entry, man.
the
It's a
curse of
hard
the third
watch.
movie.
The curse of the third movie.
Future
But
Boss.
so I feel a little indifferent when movies do that, where they kind of introduce a continuation of a franchise that had other movies that came out in between, and they just come out and they just say, well, all those other movies are non-canonical. Like
Mm-hmm.
all the events that took place, none of that stuff matters because we're just going to ignore the stories, the narratives and everything that happened leading up to,
Mm-hmm.
for example, Dark Fate. X-Men Days of Future Past didn't do that. I mean, they reset their universe,
Right.
but it's not like they said, well, we're just going to pick up from X-Men 1 and we're going to just act like the other two movies didn't happen. They
Right.
could have used something like Dark Fate to reset the universe, even with those movies still mattering, which kind of what Terminator needs is like a universe reset. In my opinion, is they tried that with Dark Fate. It was poorly executed. They introduced a totally different AI, right? Legion.
Right.
The Terminator was OP, could split himself up, can create a duplicate version of himself, which should make it should have made it hard for Grace to go up against the Rev 9 because she was still human to some extent, but like he should have split himself up more.
Oh, wasn't she the enhanced human?
She was enhanced, but he stabbed her and she still bled. She still was
Yeah.
bleeding.
Yeah, she has. Yeah, yeah. She
So
was
she
like
was
a.
human.
She was
She
like a
was
super
enhanced,
soldier.
but
Yeah.
she bleeds. If you can bleed, you can kill it. In the word, like my man Arnie said in Predator. All right, don't even get me started. That's another franchise that feels like it's been rebooted and they got everything but time travel used in it.
Well, I
But
wouldn't say it's been rebooted. but
I mean,
I
it's
would
been
say
like it's been
I would say
rebooted
they
because it's
definitely have
been
like different like stories like introduced like to keep it alive. Because think about it, we never got like a past story, like an origin story of the predator. We got one of the alien, the xenomorph, but never of the predator.
I mean, did we even really get one of the xenomorph?
Yeah,
One that I mean, did really Scott really give us that?
I mean,
No.
there was some plot holes.
Some. Like
Well, well,
how can David have created the xenomorph if they were on the Juggernaut ship they found in the first Aliens movie? That makes no and then the planet he crashes on is not the engineered planet. Whatever, man. That's again stick it to they should. That's another franchise that needs time travel. They need, aliens. They need time travel to fix it because it doesn't make sense. And we never got the third movie, the third Aliens movie in the really Skyverse. I mean, Covenant had me like interested, but down from there it just kind of not Covenant, the Prometheus had me interested in, but then like Covenant took it to a whole other level. And I mean, I wanted to like it, but I was just like, it's missing something. It's missing something. It's missing time travel. but Terminator though, Terminator, suffice to say, I think one of the best science fiction time traveling based movies out there, hands down. Not perfect, had plot holes, sure. Still, the action was probably a little bit better laid out than in say Days of Future Past as a comic book movie. It had its moments, like it had its moments. But Wolverine with no animanium is kind of boring. And, you mean you had Professor X and Beast, so we had the C list of X-Men, if you will. But
C list.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Who's C list?
I said we had Beast, Wolverine. Who want to see Beast without his Beast form fighting Essential? You do. All right, my bad. You do. Whatever happened to that Gambit movie we were supposed to get never came. Would have been cool to see Gambit.
Sheesh.
You know what I'm saying? Gambit never came.
Never.
We could have seen better power, but Wolverine with no animanium, that's kind of he all right against humans, but when he went up against the Sentinel, he was no good. He couldn't do nothing. Nothing. You know what I mean? Mystique.
He could fight Magneto this time. It's like, no.
And Magneto still gave him. We saw he put that ray bar through him and flung him.
Yeah, gave him the boot.
Magneto was OP in that movie. Nobody was seeing that, and I like Magneto. And
Magneto's the truth.
Yeah, Magneto's the word. He's the truth.
Especially on Apocalypse.
Oh, especially on Apocalypse. I don't like the look of, Apocalypse, how he looked. We talked about this long before Unlimited Mads existed, long before the podcast existed. Talked about this.
Oscar Isaacs.
Shout out to salute to him as an actor. Nothing against him, but that look was not it, family. It was not it. Not at all. They got Thanos right. Imagine if they didn't use CGI with Thanos. Tell me how he wouldn't look like one of them weird gummy toys from back in the day with the raisin Jones that would, you know what I mean?
The booty.
Tell me right. Like he would look like some. Imagine if they didn't use CGI with Thanos, and he was somebody just with pink makeup on, or something to that, like look like a clay model or something like that. Why they do that to Apocalypse? Like sleeping like he ain't the first X-Men, like he ain't their father, and that's how they did him. They got listen. Apocalypse is a movie that has so much potential. I like that scene when they're at that camp and he's pulling all the metal up from the ground. And Apocalypse is talking to him, like unlocking Magneto's, his power, or what have you.
Bruh.
That scene
was when the dude accidentally killed his daughter, and he took the necklace.
Oh yeah,
he took the necklace and went zip, zip,
right
zip,
off the
zip, zip, zip.
Right back to his hand. Wow, with the blood and
the blood
material on there. Yeah, you can see all the matter on there.
Man,
that scene was dope because nothing was said, but everybody got the point. You know what I mean? Nothing was said, but everybody got the point. Man, I felt for Magnet. I sympathize. You crazy? He was a nut. You say you got the pause. But that movie had potential parts that made me sympathize and empathize with Magneto. He was right. All he ever wanted to do was just try to live his life, but
If he
bad
wouldn't have
things just kept
saved that
happening to him.
man's life, see?
Right. Yep. Exactly. Trying to
They
be a
could
hero. You see
have
what that
just
gets
let
you.
him die and let his family get the pension.
Right. And he could have just been still moving on about his thing. Apocalypse wouldn't have had a super weapon, although Apocalypse believed the super weapon was Charles Xavier. That's why he needed his mind. He needed to absorb his power.
Yeah.
But they're going to need to use time travel again because they mumbled up the X-Men movies after Days of Future Past / Apocalypse. And Apocalypse was a movie a lot of people after Days of Future Past, that came right after Days of Future Past. Everybody was hyped for it and looking forward to it. We ain't had nothing like that take place in cinema up until that point where we got a universe or a universe resetting like event in the movie that actually gave us explained why we got new characters and all that stuff. It made sense. Marvel needs to do the same thing. Marvel needs to find all the things done right in these movies that we mentioned and find a way to stick to the time travel culture and make it make sense.
Yeah.
Stick to the rules that progress the story while also changing the universe or changing the lore. To stick to the rules that make the most sense. What you do, if you're a future-based character, what you do in the past should affect your future. It should branch off. You should be returning to a new timeline.
Right.
You know what I mean? Hands down. But really quick here, let's look at Avengers Endgame. Because Avengers Endgame is kind of like an outlier here to the other list of movies to the other movies we mentioned here on this list. Because while they went back in time, they more so took items out of time to their timeline.
Right.
I don't necessarily say it was smart. I think it breaks the timelines that they took those items from. I mean, of course, here, y'all, when we, spoilers here on the podcast, movies get the spoiler pass. All right, if you listen to the podcast, we talk about these movies. I mean, it's 2023. Some movies you should already see, especially Endgame. If you haven't seen Endgame, go ahead and watch it. Watch Infinity War first. If you haven't yet, watch Infinity War and then Endgame. In my opinion, I'm gonna tell you, Infinity War is better than Endgame, but whatever. It has a big spectacle at the end of Endgame, sure, but I think, in my humble opinion, Infinity War is one big spectacle from the time it starts to the time it ends. It's a whole spectacle. Like, there's so much that happens in between. That's like, Wanda step into Vision and Hawkeye step into Vision, trying to help Wanda. Tony Stark fighting Thanos' henchman in the beginning with Doctor Strange, and then Spider-Man popping up trying to help Strange, and then they go off into space, and then the Guardians meet with them on Titan, and then they fighting back in Wakanda, and then Thor getting Stormbreaker with the Guardians. That's a whole spectacle. Anyway, in Endgame, they went back in time to take the Infinity Stones from the different timelines, which here's what I'm saying. They did a disservice to time travel. I don't think Avengers Endgame did time travel very smart here because they're breaking their own rules.
Right. Yeah.
How can they go in time and take items out of the timeline and then not affect those timelines? That should throw the whole thing out of a limb. Like, everything that's going on and an Endgame shouldn't even happen. Arguably, dog, Thanos snapping out all those people shouldn't happen if they went back and they took the timelines back to their universe. So that means Thanos shouldn't have been able to get to him. And then how long are we talking about from when they take the Infinity Stones? So when Thor and Rocket went back in time to take the Reality Stone from Jane, which they didn't show us how they did it, which is some bull crap. Rocket just kind of pulled a doohickey. Here we go. Rocket just kind of pulled out a doohickey, but they didn't tell us how they got it out of her. But when they took the ether or the Reality Stone from Jane Foster, so in the Dark World at that point, them not having it, it should throw off that whole timeline. Then Thor not having Mjolnir either, and so they go back and they have this long epic battle with Thanos. How relevant is the time to the Avengers now in that timeline? You know what I mean? Like, is it coincided? Is it like days? Is it hours that they don't have the stones in their universe?
Right.
So, like, they kind of, in my opinion, they blew an opportunity to just go full in with time travel, and they just do time travel for real versus this time heist by them going back in time. So it's like, if you went back in time and stole the plans to create the nuclear bomb before they made the nuclear bomb. So you can make it now in the present. Does that mean they don't make the nuclear bomb in that time period? Because you got the notes now. Like you have the only physical notes to make a nuclear bomb. And you took it to your time. You took it back to the future. Here you go, being Marty McFly. You took it back to the future to make this to make a hydrogen bomb. And you took it from them during the Manhattan Project back in the 30s or whatever, 40s.
Right.
Does that mean now they can't make the bomb because you have the only? Because like they went back in time to take the only those versions of the stones. So does that mean that the Avengers in those timelines don't use the stones now or can't use them? That should affect the timeline.
Did they even know that those stones were missing in those timelines?
Right, like did they not notice? Like, oh, all of a sudden, like, for example, when they took when Loki time hopped with the Tesseract, we got him in the Loki TV show.
Right.
They realized that Loki's gone and the Tesseract's gone. Nope.
Right.
They sure didn't. At least we don't know because we just got Captain America going back in time. I mean, that could have been its own Disney Plus series that I would have thoroughly watched, even if it was a 6 episodes. How many stones is there? Yeah, 6. Even if it was a 6 episode special where, we watch him, we get each episode of him returning each stone, and maybe some things that affected them taking, some things that might have happened as a result of them taking
him taking those stones.
Right, like that. That would have been a Disney Plus episode. Yeah. That would have been. I'd have messed with that.
Yeah,
I'd have messed with that. But what about? I mean, what could they have done? What could they have done better in Avengers Endgame in terms of like time travel? Like, what do you think? What do you think they could have done better?
I mean,
besides the rat stepping on the button to bring your boy out of the quantum realm. Don't get me started on that.
I mean, for the most part, more I guess detail on how shit happened, like you said with Rocket Raccoon. Like they didn't fully explain it. You know what I mean? It's just, oh, I got it. What? But for the most part, with the time traveling with Endgame,
and the fact that Tony Stark just kind of invented time travel, like on a limb. Like my man was stuck in space for however long. I don't know how time works relative to space, but he was in space for a minute, comes back, and then my man invents time travel.
Right.
Although they use the quantum realm to do it, so it's kind of like a hack. But they use the quantum realm to travel back in time.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the situation. You know what I'm saying? Like,
pick up with the line. That's the situation.
But that's the situation. Like, on how they use time travel, the quantum realm. Like,
right.
The quantum realm deals with is a realm that exists outside of space and time, right? Or our space and time.
Right. I guess exactly. Like, is that our space and time? Is the quantum realm accessible even on another planet?
In the what if universe, they revealed that there's a place where everything exists all at once, and that's where the Watcher stays
at the same time. It's like there's a time traveling movie. Don't even get me started. That's a dedicated podcast. Y'all can laugh at your boy all you want. All it's going to do is bump this podcast in the algos. I'm going to tell you right now. Everything all together, all the time, all the place, all at once was confusing as hell. It was cool, but it was confusing. Don't just because it's edgy and it's dark does not make it interesting.
Inception confusing?
It wasn't. Don't even do that because you trolling me because you know how much I champion Inception. No, Inception made sense. You know what I mean? Inception made sense. I'm just talking about everything all together, all at once. Got like it had everything to do with time travel and like multiversal rules. I guess more multiversal. Maybe the rant is unjustified.
I was about to say because I haven't watched it yet, but I do plan on seeing it.
You haven't seen everything all together, all at once, all the time. You should see it. I mean, I just
all the time.
So I'm gonna tell y'all right now, really
everything all at once.
Everything. It's got like four. It's got a 4-sentence title. It's everything all together, all the time, all the places, something like that. It don't matter. You watch it, and here on the channel, y'all, we're going to have a series called Retro Reviews, where we review movies that kind of already came out, it's been out for a while, that are still, decent and modern enough that you should go back and give it a rewatch.
Right.
So I'm saying Skiddy should do a retro review on everything, the Everything movie. You know what I'm saying? Because it's all right, but it's confusing. It's got Jamie Lee Curtis in there. That's Jamie Lee Curtis. But you don't realize it because you don't think it's her when you watching it. It's weird. It's all right, but then it's weird at the same time. It's got odd humor.
Right.
I ain't gonna rate it. You watch it and you rate it. I ain't gonna tell you what I think it is. It won't make sense. Everybody's gonna look at me like I'm crazy.
But he gets Inception, y'all.
But Inception's that word. Yo, if y'all out there, wherever you watching this podcast wherever you're watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, hit us up, come over to the YouTube channel. You tell me if Inception made more sense than Everything Everywhere, whatever the title is. The title is even confusing. Don't get me started.
Everything
the title's confusing.
all at once.
It's not called it's called Everything.
That's what it's called. Together. Everything all at once.
All the time. It's got like 4 title names. That's the thing. We're not debating over the title of Inception. It's got one word. It's Inception. That one got a title with like the same with like absolutes in it. Everything all together, all at once, all the time. This is what the title is, or something like that. But it was confusing. I couldn't mess with it. As like a multi-universe kind of.
You're like a grandpa that don't remember the full. You was like, yeah, that movie where everything all together.
All at once. That's the title, though.
All at once, all the time.
Right. Everything in the store at the same point. That's why I don't get the movie. I tried. I liked it, but I was sitting there watching like I don't know what's going on right now. I don't know.
It reminds me of. It reminds me a different, a similar aspect to The One.
Oh, with Jet Li. Well, I mean, that was a movie that's got to go on our guilt. We got to do a whole podcast episode titled "Guilty Pleasures" because that's a guilty pleasure, like because the one was. Can we just rate it now? I can't ask you because you're gonna be like, a 10 out of 10. I didn't put that shit on a shirt. 10 out of 10. What would you give Jet Li the one? That's a little old one, y'all. I don't know if you've seen the one. It's got Jet Li. I'll give a quick synopsis while Skiddy's about to drop his super high score on it. But it's got your boy Jet Li.
I would give it, I mean, as an interdimensional movie. Remember, it's interdimensional.
The multiverse.
And also remember, it had the theory when one person died, that energy would disperse onto the next ones, onto all of them. So that was an
I thought it was whoever. Right now, never mind.
No, remember it dispersed into all of them.
Right, because the main the one who kind of saved from the evil Jet Li, he was becoming stronger and things, and he didn't know why. Yeah. Right, so you're right. Yeah, it went to go to all of them.
It was that story original. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't. Now I'm not saying that it wasn't. Wasn't plot holes in it.
Right.
Because it was like, well, wouldn't it be, different people as well, like him?
Right.
I think. Here's what I think. I think if the one would have had like a different, like different, like another movie dealing with somebody else, or a show or a TV show.
Or was he the first one doing what he was doing? Like in that
he wasn't the first one that was doing what he was doing. He was the first one to get as close as he got to.
Right, but
because remember they said that here's my they didn't say nothing, but here's my theory. Whenever rules are made, it's because somebody try to do it the first time.
Okay.
So if they only had a theory about what was going on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, but they know if that one existed, that one would be strong as hell. His
right.
strength would be unimaginable.
Right.
So
well, I mean, here's what the one needs: a reboot, remake.
Yeah.
It just needs to be done. I mean, it was all right for science fiction during its time.
Right.
What we got, especially when the Matrix was coming off its high horse, what have you. It was all right. I mean, it had one of the best intros using the song "Bodies," bodies, right? And it's the fact that as he took out each version of himself, he got stronger. So like when he showed up in the universe, he like I never forget when that scene when he hit the boy with the bike. I thought that was so cool. Like at the time, I was man, that
Nah,
was dope.
my favorite scene on that movie, and I liked how he like was displaying like the two different sides of himself when they were training. You know what I'm saying? When they were both training, you had the one Jet Li that was serene. He was doing the free flowing Tai Chi.
Right.
You know what I mean? He was just moving with the flow, and then you had the evil one that was. And he was every time
Right.
he was moving, it was a
So
shockwave that you would see the rocks just flutter. That shit was fire though. Like
so
you could
in
see it. Go ahead.
the Everything All at Once movie, that's kind of like what she was doing. She was tapping into other versions of herself and
Mm,
taking on her skills. I'm
okay.
taking a page out your book. I
That
don't want to
sounds like
spoil too much.
Assassin's Creed.
I mean, yes and no, but
Right.
the way they so in Assassin's Creed they use memories
DNA.
from
Memories.
and it was taken from DNA from ancestors.
Right, right.
This was like her whatever her in
Accessing
different
other
universes.
dimensional selves.
Right. In each universe, there was something different. Like one, they didn't have fingers or like hands. So I don't know. It's weird. You gotta watch it. That's why I'm like,
Never,
nah, Inception is a
never.
little way to follow. And I still and you have you ever seen Inception, dog? You gonna say no. He ain't it.
I tried watching it. I
Had
swear
to
I
walk
tried
away.
watching
See,
it.
there you go.
And
So you gonna
every
cut
time I try watching it, something, you know what? Here's what I'm gonna say. I'm going to watch it tonight
right. Okay.
before I go to sleep.
Y'all hear this now. That's why go
I'm
ahead,
gonna
man.
watch it tonight
Uh-huh.
because I always get up to the part, and it's the beginning, because it's like, okay, they were in the Japanese bull's head. No, they wasn't in the Japanese bull's
That's my
head.
boy Saito. That's Saito.
They was in somebody else's head who was in the Japanese bull's head.
Right,
And
that
it's
was in
like,
the first beginning. So they was testing them. They was showing them how they can go a dream within a dream, like
right.
making somebody fall asleep, make them dream. And the one thing about Inception, I will say, why not time travel? But the one thing I will say about Inception is they didn't explain the devices enough. I
Yeah,
think that's the one Achilles heel with the movie
right,
Inception is that
right. The
they kind
mechanics.
of right the mechanics of the machine they use to access other people's dreams. I mean, that's got to be pretty, science fiction, or I mean, pretty high, high tech or whatever. But which would make it science fiction. But to access somebody's dreams like that and to be fully
Yeah,
conscious in somebody's dream is, I mean, that's a heck of. But jumping back to Avengers Endgame and how they did time travel, um, it didn't really affect their main timeline.
right.
All it really did was bring back the people that were snapped away. It's not like they went back in time to prevent the snap from happening, which
Which
seems like it
my whole
would have
thing
made a
is
little bit
that
more
that's another
sense.
thing. Yeah, like if they grabbed them before the snap happened, then that's weird. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, as a time heist, they just kind of yada yada over. We're just gonna go snatch these out of the past, bring them to our timeline, use them, and then just put them back like like nothing happened. Like Ferris Bueller couldn't even get off that easy when he tried to take his daddy's car. You know what I mean? It's like how can they
Exactly.
go back? How can they go back in time, take something out of the past, bring it back to the future, and that past not be affected? But the Hawk says they can't change their future by changing the past, but they effectively changed the future of those timelines that they took those stones out of. So the
Right.
timeline that Loki was captured in, that's the 2012 Avengers, the timeline that Loki was captured in, he's not. He broke free. So
Right.
what does that do to that timeline? You know what I mean? That
Well,
should break that timeline.
it created Loki.
All right, I mean, I see what you did there, but yeah, it
It
created the
created
show
the,
Loki. But still, what did it do for that timeline then? You know, not the one where they went back with the stones, but the timeline that they took the stone from and Loki disappeared. How did Captain America go back to that timeline and they explain, well, oh, by the way, Loki's missing with the Tesseract. You know what I mean?
well, remember they end up, didn't they? No, he was gone. He was gone.
He was gone. Like you said, we got Loki.
Yeah, we got Loki. Yeah.
We got Loki. That's what I'm saying. We got Loki, so he was gone. So I'm like, how could that happen? How could that? And then you got the TVA. Look, what it boils down to is Avengers Endgame for a movie that tried to borrow from the time travel culture. Essentially, it did. It went back in time to change the future. And they hit it well. I'll give them that. We didn't get signs that it was going to be a whole, oh, they're going to go back in time. We saw Thanos in the trailer. We just thought it was the one that they got from the snap, right?
Right.
So, but apparently, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. So I don't think Avengers Endgame did time travel really well. Here's a wild card I will throw at you, though. Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day. Was my man stuck in a temporal loop or what? Like, I mean,
that was my whole thing. Was that more so? I was like, rather than time travel, was it a temporal loop?
Right, because he kept repeating the same day, but like it was just over and over again, like a loop. And he had to die at the end or something like that to break the loop. Like he had to change. He did everything. He still survived. Remember?
Or he had to. I don't know. It was weird. I remember Groundhog's Day. Like he had to meet this female or something.
Right, but he had to do something. He had to switch it up. He had to break it up.
It was weird.
But that's a classic movie. Me and Skiddy, we dating ourselves here. That's a 80s joint, Groundhog Day. My man Bill Murray, essentially on Groundhog Day, he relived the same day every day. Like his alarm clock went off. It was the same radio broadcast that went on. Everything just kept playing itself over and over again. No matter what he do, he couldn't kill himself. He had to do like something different to break the loop. But I think he was in the temporal loop. I think he was in temporal loop, which is different because as a time travel narrative, there should be consequences involved with time traveling. In the Flash or DC, who typically gets time traveling right here. Just saying, one of the best comic book publishers in the world. They usually get time traveling done right. And Barry, when he time travels, there's a consequence. He's creating a different universe. He just can't go back in time and prevent his mother's death from happening.
Right.
Why? Because there's going to be consequences to that. We saw that in Flashpoint Paradox. Solid anime if you haven't seen it. All right. Or
solid comic arc.
Solid comic arc as well.
Right? Created the best Batman ever.
Hold on. I know our audio listeners could hear you say it, but just say it one more time.
Flashpoint Paradox created the best Batman ever.
And he said it with a serious face too.
Ever.
I don't even think he believed that.
A Batman that don't mind shooting.
Too bad that Batman didn't exist at the end of the story's conclusion. Too bad he came and went just as fast as he came.
Yep.
He ain't stick around so much for him being the best.
That was a deep flip though, where instead of Bruce Wayne surviving, Thomas and Martha survive, and one becomes Batman and the other one becomes the Joker.
That was an interesting twist that should spiral out, and this is why DC gets it right with time travel, because they took it and said, you want to prevent this thing from happening. It's going to change.
What else is going to happen? This is a ripple effect of
right, exactly. And Marvel did not give us no ripple effect in Avengers Endgame. There was no the Ancient One, great cameo. The Ancient One tried to warn Bruce Banner of it, and I thought they was going to go somewhere with that, because what if the Ancient One didn't give him the time stone?
Right.
You feel me?
Right.
That would have created a big problem, because they would have been screwed. Mm-hmm. What if she didn't give him the time stone? She had all the points she was making is the ones that I was saying. That she's saying that she is jeopardizing their timeline by giving him the time stone and letting him go back to go back to his timeline.
Right.
And it was just yada yada over. It was ignored. I think out of all the movies on this list, Avengers Endgame did a disservice to the time traveling culture altogether. Yeah. They did introduce no consequences to their time traveling escapades, which should always have some type of ripple effect. That's why in Back to the Future
But remember, in that universe, time is, you know what I'm saying? Like the way they explained it in Loki, Like, remember, they used the fucking Infinity Stones as paperweights.
I got you, because into there they didn't exist, which I just think that was just poor writing. Like, I don't know if that was smart or whatever they was trying to achieve with that, but it still doesn't make sense. So if Loki takes one of those stones back to a timeline, do they become relevant again? Again, don't get me wrong with Thor: Love and Thunder, who, if Thor had the ability to go to the god that grants the wishes,
Right.
why not just go back and wish everybody back?
It's
Especially once I realized that Thanos couldn't unsnap what he did because he destroyed the stones.
Eternity.
Eternity. I'm sorry, Eternity. Yeah. That's our resident Marvel Wikipedia, y'all. But if he went back in time, why not? I mean, if they could, instead of going back in time, why not just go to Eternity and wish everybody be snapped back? Why, when they use the stones, they can use the stones twice in Endgame. Thanos snapped one time and they were destroyed. Make it make sense. They use it twice. One time to bring everybody back, another time to make Thanos and them disappear. Disservice to time traveling culture.
Scotty doesn't know.
Skiddy just doesn't know. It's Marvel, so it is what it is. I mean, we all know Flash is going to do it, and Flash is going to do it right. I saw that goofy look you just made. We know Flash is going to do it. For the audio only listeners can't see.
Oh no, I said damn. I did say Scotty.
It's all good. They know who you are. Spoiler: Scott Skiddy.
Spoiler: Scott Skiddy.
Yep. Spoiler: Scott Skiddy. Skiddy. But Avengers 3, man, didn't do good. Didn't do good. Out of all the lists here, all the movies that we talked about, I'd say it really boils down between Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and Days of Future Past that did time travel right. You know, we briefly talked about Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat used time travel, I mean, twice now, I believe. I believe it's twice.
The game, right?
In the games, right?
Now, what I will say is that they kept it solid. We didn't talk about Mortal Kombat enough.
No,
I like how, since they changed things in the timeline, that there was stuff changed in the lore, in the universe. For instance, when Raiden made a certain move that prevented smoke from becoming cybernetic smoke, then that just changed it to Sub-Zero being turned into cybernetic Sub-Zero.
But my understanding, did you know? All right, but the Sub-Zero and the Sub-Zero is not the same Sub-Zero after Mortal Kombat 2. It's his brother.
It's Kai.
Yeah.
No, 2 is Kai. 1 is Bi-Han.
Right.
Bi-Han dies on the first one.
And the first Mortal Kombat.
2, Kai comes up.
It's his brother.
Right. That's his brother. That's the one. He's the one known with the scar on his face.
Right.
So yeah. After that, it's always Kai.
Because we rarely got like time travel in video games. That's kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, to change, because Mortal Kombat has done it to change how the game looks, how the game plays, and the story, which is solid. Yeah, they did Mortal Kombat. The game, sticking to time travel culture, they did it solid. It made sense. They were able to change how the game looked, like you said, change characters. So in the new Mortal Kombat, that's why Scorpion, when Liu Kang, spoiler alert, when Liu Kang created his new era, his new timeline, it changed up so many different characters. That's why Scorpion's a human now. So Scorpion,
Raiden. Well, Scorpion was a human after on Mortal Kombat. Come on, Scott. X or 11. Was it 11? No, X. No, it was 11. Or was it X?
No, he was still undead. He's always been undead up until this point, but like in
I
the
thought
time,
it was until X. I thought it was until X. Yeah. Because X, that's when he helps out. He restores the link, the Shiryu, the Shinryu on X. Because those were, yeah. Hmm?
Are you sure?
I could have
Because in the
sworn.
new in the new Mortal Kombat, in Mortal Kombat 1, that's why all the characters look different. Like literally, like in Liu Kang's new timeline,
Raiden, because you see Raiden and Kung Lao.
Raiden's a human now. He's
Human.
just
Yeah.
there to help Liu Kang, like be his advisor. He said he's going to serve his whole natural life to
Right.
just kind of be his advisor because Liu Kang don't know nothing about being no god of anything. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
And
Right.
now he has like the time dial or whatever in his
See, I gotta
control.
go. I gotta play Mortal Kombat 11 again.
Well, yeah, I mean it's
Because
but
the thing is that even on 11, Scorpion is human on there. It's not until that time shift that he gets introduced into his Spectre self.
okay. Well, I
So
mean, tell you what, I'm gonna be there to review Mortal Kombat 1. Anyway, it looks dope. Plus, I think I saw they got RoboCop skin in there, or that was from Mortal Kombat 11. So I might even rock with Mortal Kombat 11 too.
yeah, I'm
Nice,
definitely going to be rocking Diablo 4.
nice. Okay.
Hop on that.
Well, all right. We talked about a few movies, all feature time travel or some element of time travel. I think suffice it to say we both agree, and the community at large probably agrees that Terminator 2, one of the best science fiction time traveling stories told. Solid follow up of Days of Future Past, especially one that's a comic book story, comic book central or centric based time traveling story. Avengers Endgame, I mean, probably one of the least on this list, this quick list, this quick fire, this rapid fire list of movies that feature time travel and that really wasn't solid, kind of did a disservice. I think them taking the Infinity Stones out of the past should have created some type of consequence or some type of ripple effect that's just
Right.
glorified or glanced over. They used the Infinity Stones twice now on a gauntlet made by a human, and it burnt out and was like messed up when Thanos used it just for doing the snap one time. Yeah, he used it in battle a few times too, but when he snapped one time, that was it. The glove was damaged.
Right.
They snapped twice and was able to put the stones
I
back.
mean,
Like
he used the individual stones' powers.
right, yeah. I mean, he used
Yeah.
them individually, but still,
With the
when
gauntlet, which was I ain't gonna front, that was fire too.
yeah, see, I mean, if that's why I said Infinity War, it's a little better than Game. It's a whole spectacle from the moment when they're on Thanos' ship after Ragnarok or I'm sorry, Thor's ship in Ragnarok after Ragnarok, and Thanos shows up and beat the brakes off of Hawk. So Hawk ain't been hold on. Hawk ain't been right since that fight. Think about everything we've seen Hawk in. She-Hulk too. Hawk ain't been right since he took a L from Thanos. Straight facts.
Yeah, let's go back in time and take that
Change
movie out.
that. All right, y'all. But that's been episode 3 here of the Unlimited Mags podcast, talking about time travel culture. If you haven't yet, do be sure to find episode 1 and 2 down in the description box below or up in the cards here that are also down below. If you haven't joined the Unlimited Mags family, subscribe with the notification bell on to receive all future updates, content, posts, and what have you. Future videos. We got a few set to roll out in the upcoming weeks as we get the podcast all figured out and straightened out here. But we made it to episode 3, so it's about getting better in each episode, and we appreciate y'all following
Yes,
along the
yes.
podcast journey
Thank
as
y'all for the love.
we find ways again to improve it here with
And
each
don't forget to
episode.
like and share too.
Right, I think I told him to do that, Skiddy, but tell him again.
You said subscribe.
I said subscribe. Well, yeah, definitely like and share. My bad. Well, definitely like and share. Skiddy's got a point. That's not bad. Look, he got one whole point on the scoreboard. He posing. All right. All right, it's cool, but go ahead. Definitely like it. Like and share. Do the things that help, and also comment down here on the podcast. Let us know if there's a topic you disagree with. Maybe
or,
Avengers.
or even or even like there's some time travel movies that we didn't name, some time travel
Right,
films that we didn't name.
right. Trying to keep the podcast at a respectable limit, but we love to keep the conversation going down the comment section. So Skiddy's right. If there's a time travel movie that was excluded from the ones we discussed here today, and you made it this far, first of all, shout out, thank you for listening to podcasts all the way through. If you listen to on a different platform, we advise you head over to YouTube so you can catch the video experience. Listen to the audio experience only is fine, but you're missing about 50% of our podcast experience for you, as you are missing out on all of Skiddy's eccentric faces when I'm dropping bombs that he knows is right. like that one right there.
That's not a he's right face, y'all.
That's a he know he's right. But all right, y'all, we will catch you in the next podcast episode. We should drop on Mondays. That's our tentative date to drop the podcast once a week here. All right. But we do hope to catch y'all in the next one. Skiddy, you got anything for him before we sign out?
Nah, man, you know, love being here, love, you know, chit-chatting on the geekery. You know, listening to your DC crap, but you know, it is what it is.
He loves the DC crap. He's being a hater. But all right, y'all. We'll catch y'all next one, man. Be easy.